All right. Hello, everybody. This is Mike Philippov, of course. Welcome to the Guitar Genius chat episode. We're going to have some fun today. So, we're streaming, of course, live on both YouTube and Facebook. And today, we are going to be talking about music theory and specifically how to practice music theory for maximum gains. And I've got a very, very special guest, a great friend of mine, one of the smartest guitar players and people in general that I've ever met. Dr. Tommaso Zillio.
Well, hello, Internet, and so nice to see you. And hi, Mike. Long time no see. How's it going?
It's going great, Tommaso. Great to have you. Let me mute myself, actually mute you while I'm doing some talking here so that there's no echo and sound is good. All right, so we are going to be talking about how to practice music theory for maximum gains. And Tommaso, of course, you run the very popular website, Music Theory for Guitar, that's helping guitar players with music theory. So my first question for you to kick things off, it's kind of an interesting one, is I'd like to get your perspective on what do you think is the end game or the goal with learning music theory? Because some people, as you know, they think, music theory is just a set of rules that boxes you in and limits you, so therefore don't learn it or learn it as little as possible. And some people are all in on music theory. They think it's like the most awesome thing for being more creative, but where does it end? Like, what is the end game? How much do you really need to learn? What are your thoughts on all this stuff?
Well, the question is, what is the end game of music? So we're doing all these things when we make sounds and we record them and we send them to each other and we listen to those sounds. What's the end game of this? It's enjoying it. Okay, so the first question is ask yourself, why do you make music or why do you listen to music? What do you like in it? And the answer may not be obvious, okay? It could be different for each one of us. But then once you have it, that's your answer, because music theory is just music. Okay? It's just how to make music and how to understand music. It's very telling that today we talk about music theory, but 300 years ago, nobody talked about music theory. We talk about music. And what we teach today as music theory was music, period. If anything, when they were teaching you other stuff, like, I don't know, we have a great book by one of the sons of Johann Sebastian Bach, Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach. And the first half of the book is technical, how to play the keyboard. It wasn't the piano at the time. It was just every kind of keyboard instrument. What's the technique? So what's the right fingering, the scales, the stuff, and all this kind of thing. The second part is what we call music theory, which for them was like how to read a score, how to interpret the symbols and make the right chord, how to improvise. Okay, and there are great suggestions how to improvise in there if you play in that specific style and play on a keyboard. So not really great for us, but I mean, it's interesting. It was all music for them. Okay, we separate today between physical practice and theory and maybe other stuff, which is useful. Okay, it's not bad. Okay, it's very useful because it allows us to specialize and it allows us to correctly identify different problems. Okay, so if you cannot play something fast enough, you can start thinking, I'm not fast enough because my fingers are not following me, or I'm not fast enough because my brain cannot find where I have to play the notes or what is the scale. So we can diagnose any kind of situation better. So we can become better musicians thanks to this division. But ultimately, it's an artificial division, okay? Because music is music, okay? And everything we do about music is connected. There are the borders between those practice and theory and performing, for instance, or composition or listening are not as defined as we'd like to make them. So, for instance, if you study and you practice and you understand your music theory well enough, when you listen to music, you have a completely different experience because now you start hearing exactly what the composer wanted to do. You can not only give a name to those things, which is interesting but not great, but you really perceive it in a different way. Okay, if you practice your guitar and get at a certain level of speed, naturally your ear has to follow too, because you cannot play faster than your ear. Okay, you will not be able to understand what you yourself are doing. So when you push up your physical speed, automatically you push up also your listening speed. And so many people, many guitar players that before you were thinking were just soulless shredder, now they make more sense because you can follow better what they're doing at a high speed. You understand their language. They're not soulless shredders anymore. I mean, there are always soulless shredders. Some people just play fast for playing fast, but some of them reveal themselves to be just musicians at a high speed. Okay, so what's the end game? I don't know. The end game is to enjoy it, I think, and there is no end in sight. There is no moment that I can see in the future where I will ever say I know enough music theory or I know everything there is to know or I'm done. I don't see this moment happening. I keep discovering new things. I keep going deeper and deeper in some stuff, in some things. I keep revisiting the old stuff, and then sometimes I just revisit how to put together 3 triads, and I find different way of playing them that sound great. I mean, 3 triads. At this point, I should have played all the possible combination, but no, I haven't yet, apparently. So I don't think there is an end, and I think that's the good news, because it means the fun will never end. That's the thing. If we ever in the next 30 or 40 years we find the secret of eternal life, I mean, if it happens, I mean, I'm not going to be unhappy if it happens, okay? I know I can still enjoy music for at least several centuries before I finish it, okay? So maybe we can invent something new later. So I think that's the idea. Now, but what's the mid-level goal? Okay, why we should even start studying what today we call music theory? Because it makes the game more fun. Okay, and it's the same thing why we should study technique. Why? It makes the game more fun, because if you can only play slow and you can only play in one position, how much fun can you have? Some fun, but expanding the possibilities allow you to have more fun, to do more things. Learning music theory, exactly the same thing. It allows you to discover new sounds, new way of putting everything together. And for me, it's always this thing that people say, like, I don't want to learn music theory because it puts me in a cage. I never gonna get out of that. And then they start writing some music, and it's the same 3 chords, okay? And they're always gonna write stuff, I mean, which sounds good. I'm not saying no. But somehow when they start writing the music, they always stay in a scale. They don't even know it's a scale, okay? Or at most, they play 2 chords, which are 2 open string chords, and they have no idea what they go together, but they know they go together, and they don't know that they're connected in a very specific way and what to do on them, etc. I think you have way more fun once you understand where those things come from, what you can do with that, how to expand on them. At least, that's how I see it. Okay. And again, I may not be the most reliable person on this because I really, 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 really love music theory. So, okay, I may be biased. Okay. But that's what I think. What do you think?
That I think you pretty much. Can you mute you here? Give her the echo. I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head, especially with the 2 points you made that stuck out to me was how you talked about speed and how when you increase your physical speed, your ability to hear notes at faster speeds increases, so you can appreciate more music. And the same can be said about music theory. The more you learn, the more music you can appreciate that maybe currently sounds kind of like garbage to you, or that you just can't understand why somebody made the musical choices they made. So it kind of goes hand in hand. And I think also as you get better at really whatever skill we're talking about, ear training, music theory, technique, what you once thought was unattainable or even challenging now gets within your comfort zone to such an extent that you kind of get bored by it and you keep wanting to go for the next level, the next level, and the next level. So it's exactly like you said. In the beginning, it all seems overwhelming. And in one sense, the overwhelm kind of never goes away. It's just replaced. Maybe what you get in addition to the overwhelm is the feeling of confidence that the overwhelm thing is normal and there's always going to be a lot to learn. You just take it one piece at a time and enjoy the process, and you're going to be good to go. So I think that's how I see it.
And before people start thinking that getting better at music theory means you appreciate classical music or jazz or stuff like that, I mean, which are great. Okay, no problem. And it depends exactly what you study in music theory and what you want to learn. Okay, by the way, study is such a bad verb. It's like it gives the idea like you with a big dusty book. We're gonna talk later about how we study music theory, and it's super fun. And if it's not fun, that's no point, by the way. But it depends what you look into music theory and what would you do, etc. You can gain appreciation for literally any kind of music. Okay, so if you study rhythm, for instance, because there is a lot of theory of rhythm, it's hard to find books on that, but there are a few very obscure books in strange languages, okay, like French, okay, 19th century French, which is not really the easiest thing to read, but you can find something you can study, you can do some exercises, etc., and then you start gaining an appreciation for instance, dance music, okay, which not all, but most of dance music is very poor harmonically, okay? Especially the more modern you get, the more you get past the 80s, it's just 2 chords or 3 chords, okay? Before the 80s, you had it was mixed with jazz sometimes, so. Or actually, it's better to say the jazz came from dance music, but let's not go in there right now. But you start appreciating what they're doing rhythmically and ignoring the idea that the harmony is really bare bones, essentially. And then you start really appreciating, you start enjoying it, seriously enjoying it, okay? And this includes some of the, some of what the music snobs say it's completely horrible, like, I don't know, 80s or 90s dance music. Music critics cannot stand that, okay? But that's because the music critics have been born and raised on a diet of jazz and classical music. And so they have exactly the wrong lenses, the wrong outlook to understand the dance music. So, and the interesting thing is that you can understand this music and keep an understanding of the other music, so you can still enjoy anything you enjoyed before. Maybe not exactly at the same moment, okay, but you can shift your perspective to understand different kinds of music. The only way to, there's not one way to get that, because you can get this just by listening, okay? You can get this just by, say, okay, this week I'm listening only to 70s dance music, okay? And so I can start hearing the bass line and the groove, etc. And you get used to it. But you can also get there by sheer music theories, meaning, okay, let me study rhythm, and then you study music composed with these ideas in mind, and then you start seeing, what's the game for a specific kind of music? The thing is, music is not one game. Music is several different games, and people make their own rules in those games and create different kind of feeling and different kinds of moods. And so it's very hard, essentially. If you think one style of music is the best, period, stamp of approval, it's hard for you to understand what's good or great in other styles of music. My outlook is this: if a style of music exists, it's good, meaning that there is good music inside. And there will be also crap inside, because, I mean, it's not, for every game you create, some people play it really well, some people play it really badly. So every style has some crap. Can I say crap on YouTube? The other styles have something good, great. Every style has something good, but until you understand the game in that style, for you it's all bad. That's the thing. But if a style exists, it means some people are enjoying it. If some people are enjoying it, it means that there is a way to position your brain somehow so that you can understand the game. Okay? So that's part of the game. And again, this is not strictly what we call music theory, but it is a real effect of doing all that, okay? And it is not a chance that, for instance, people who study mostly scales, for instance, learn to enjoy for instance, some jazz, some metal, specific kinds of blues. Blues is not one thing, of course, because those music has been composed thinking of the scale. And I'm not thinking just linearly, I'm thinking also harmonically. They take the chord from the scale. If you study mostly chords, you end up enjoying some classical music, some jazz, especially bebop, etc., because those chords, in that kind of music, chords come first. Okay, and the question is, what comes first, the chords or the scale? It depends what you want to do. Okay, in some music the scales come first, in some music the chord come first. Okay, and I'm really simplifying the thing here, and it's a bit abstract. So somebody's writing on the comments, I don't want to position my brain to like mariachi music, but I tell you, Scott, if you do, mariachi music is actually great. Okay? The right position for mariachi music would be to start listening to the vocal harmonies or to the trumpet harmonies. Okay, but there was a comment on my YouTube channel the other day about this person that was stuck somehow in a situation where he had to listen to Chinese opera for a long time. He was waiting somewhere in China, and it was what they were blasting from the speakers. If you guys have ever listened to China, if you guys are Western listeners, and you ever tried listening to Chinese opera, the first impact is like horrible, because they sing with a specific nasal voice, with a strange vibrato, okay? And to us it sounds, okay? And at the beginning it's horrible, but if you can stick to it for 15 minutes, and I know I'm asking a lot, okay? But if you can stick with it for 15 minutes, somehow your brain realigns the baseline and starts to understand what's happening in that strange phrasing, and then it becomes really good. It's kind of a strange thing. There's literally a minute where you go from, this is horrible, to, wait a second, now it makes sense. Okay, and I know a lot of people in the audience will now go and Google Chinese music, try 4 minutes, and go like, this is absolutely horrible. Like, guys, stay with it for 15 minutes, half an hour. Okay, just try, stay with it, stick to it. It will make sense. And I'm not saying you will enjoy it more than other stuff, but at least it will not feel like it's something completely foreign to you. Okay, it's just a question of recalibrating your baseline. Okay, for instance, if you listen to Western opera, they put vibrato on every note. So on every note, okay, so for us guitar players who are used to know to put vibrato only on some notes, Western operas, the singing sounds horrible. But if you can stick to it a moment and you get used to this idea of the vibrato all the time, then it makes more sense. And it's not such a big difference that you cannot do it, essentially. There are bigger differences in the world of music, okay? So this is an idea that how music theory helps you listen to something different, okay? And for instance, Chinese opera is not so different than Western opera. The harmonies are actually pretty similar. They use slightly different scales, but the harmony, the idea, it's actually pretty similar. It's strange, okay? Now, if you are, on the other hand, if you're Chinese or you got used to Chinese opera already, you can try the same with Western opera and see if it works for you. Okay, but yeah, that's the idea. Even the kind of music that you hate the most, if somebody likes it, it means that there is something they're liking in it, and you're not listening to it. Maybe again, you can go get to know this new style, and then later you're like, okay, I get it now, but it's still not my favorite thing. Great, legit. It's not that you have to like hip hop, okay? Legit, no problem. But at least getting a little bit of knowledge on why people like that, maybe you can get something from that style and bring it back into your own style. You can get the best stuff from that style and bring it back into your own style. Okay? For anybody who doubts that, try to transcribe with your guitar any kind of hip hop. Okay, the singers there are not really singing; they're rapping. Okay, there's this kind of rhythmic thing. Get those rhythm under your fingers. It's great to pick one note and try to reproduce the whole rapping only with one note and see if you can. I mean, which brings us, how do you practice all these? Okay, so how do you practice all these? You try to play it on your guitar. Okay, everything you learn, you have to bring it back to your guitar, or if you don't play guitar, to your instrument in general. Okay, it's not that we don't want to be too. I mean, I'm pretty sure your listeners here are mostly guitar players, but we don't want to be too guitar centric either. Okay, this works for everything. So, you learn what are the chords in a key, say, or play those chords on your guitar. Okay, listen how they sound. Try to make a chord progression. Okay, how do you make a chord progression? Just string together a few of those chords and see what works for you. Okay, that's a good start. Okay, there is this concept I call the minimum, the simplest possible song. Okay, the simplest possible song, or the minimum possible song, which is take one thing you learn in music theory, anything. Chords in a key, notes in a scale, specific kind of chord progression, a mode, whatever, okay? Whatever you learn, voice leading, whatever you, and write a 10-second song. Okay, of course you cannot say much in 10 seconds. I mean, write a 10-second piece of music, not really a song, okay? 8 bars of music, 4 bars of music, okay? It doesn't have to be complete. It doesn't have to end. It doesn't have to do anything. There is no expectation of anything. Just write 4 or 8 bars of music, or 3, whatever, with what you just learned. And it could just be like, okay, I learned that most songs do take chord from a scale, and they use the chord 1, chord 4, and chord 5. Okay, in C major, chord 1 is C, chord 4 is F, chord 5 is G, and then go back to F. Can I make some music with that? Good, you're done. That's your exercise. You wrote this. Now, can you do something else? Sure. Can you play this the opposite direction? So, 1, 5, 4, 1. Now it feels different. I mean, versus. Okay, they feel different. Why they are different, that's a long story, okay? But how it is different, you can tell. Which one do you like best? Or can you give words to describe both feelings, okay? Can you write something more with that? Sure, okay? Can you add an extra chord in it? Or can you change the rhythm? Or can you put a melody on it? Or can you change the instrument and see how it works? Can you write a bass line? Open up your Cubase, Logic, etc. Record that, okay? That's how you start practicing your music theory. You take one idea and you start making some music out of that. Why people don't do it? Okay, I mean, it's important to know why people don't do it, because we all have this idea that if we write music, we have to make a masterpiece, right? So you're like, okay, I know this music theory, or I know this music theory, I should be able to write the best song of the century, okay, the top 40 or something like that. And so you get paralyzed because you're like, you try something and you're like, nah, this is not good. Throw it away. Let me try something else. And then you throw away all the ideas. No, take the simplest idea, the silliest idea, okay? Don't try to be serious or important or anything. It's only for you and it's just an exercise, okay? And just create 10 seconds of music. Nobody has to see it. Nobody has to hear it. Nobody has to know you did it. It's the same thing you do when you practice technique. When you play a scale, when you learn a scale for the first time, are you thinking, I'm gonna play the best scale of the century? People are gonna pay me for this. All my friends are gonna love me by how well I play this scale. No, you're not doing this. Let me figure out how to play it. Am I picking up or down? Okay. Am I using the index finger or the middle finger? You're starting thinking about this stuff because you want to play the scale. It's an exercise. you're not already thinking of performing this exercise in front of an audience or recording this exercise and publishing it, okay? So it's easier in a sense because you don't have the weight of all those expectations on it. But somehow when it starts with music theory, you're like, okay, I put two chords together. Can I make a song out of that? Can I publish it? Can I become rich and famous? No, relax. Make some music with that. Play with it. It's called playing music, guys, okay? For a reason, because it's a game. Put down those two chords. Try to make some music with it. Make it better. Change the instrument, change the rhythm. Have fun. Naturally, some stuff grows from that. At a certain point, out of I don't know, 10 small exercises like that, you have 1 or 2 or 3 that sounds particularly good. And like, okay, why don't I make some more music with this idea? And then you start creating your song. And they just come out naturally. You don't have to sit down and say, I'm going to write a song, and then stare at the empty screen for half an hour before you have an idea. Take the simplest idea. And the moment you get a better idea, sure, abandon it and get the better idea, but make something with that. Okay, stop judging everything you do. Okay, later you can judge and say, was it good, was it bad, can I make it better, how can I make it better, do I really like this sound? Because then you go like, okay, this is way too happy for me, it doesn't have the pathos I want, it doesn't have the okay, so okay, let's do it with minor chords. Better? Okay, so it depends on you if it's better or not. Or maybe I go in the opposite direction. Change the chord. Wait, I know this one. Whatever. 90s dance song. Don't remember the title. Whatever, which I just found out right now. Okay. And by the way, this stuff happens. You try an idea and you're like, hey, I heard this song. Okay. And then you're recomposing a song that exists, which is a great sign. Okay. It means that you are getting the idea. Okay. You are on the same path as musician before you. You're getting the idea. You know, you're getting the simple application. Okay. Which is good. So at the beginning you do this and you start creating some music, and all this music can be completely unoriginal because somebody else wrote it before you, but you generated it. That's the important point. It's an exercise. Just like when you play a scale, you're not thinking about all the musicians who played a major scale before you. When you do this exercise, you should not think about all the musicians who composed the same thing before you. It's an exercise. Relax. Okay. Later, and by the way, not even that much later, okay? Because you cannot help but being yourself. So at a certain point, you start compose something that nobody composed before because you are putting those things together in a different way. It happens. It just does not happen in the first 5 minutes. Just like the Chinese opera thing, it doesn't happen in the first 5 minutes, okay? So you need to stick to it, and it happens. And at this point, you start writing something, and there is this weird moment when you're like, I really like this that I just wrote. I like it so much that I'm not even sure it's original to me or somebody else wrote it before me and I just hit. And sometimes it's one thing, sometimes it's the other. Sometimes, okay. And that's why you should ask your friends, have you ever heard this before? Okay. Just to make sure you haven't actually wrote an old song. But at a certain point, people are like, no, this is completely original. Never heard this. Okay, good. That's mine. Okay. And then you make a song out of that. And that's how this organically grows. Okay. So, and that's how you start practicing music theory. The whole point is don't let it be a theory. Okay. And I really, as much as I like music theory, I really dislike the name. As much as I called my website Music Theory for Guitar, otherwise people will never understand what I'm talking about. But music theory is the wrong name. Okay. It's not theory. Okay, or it's theory up to a certain point, meaning that it has to be taken into practice. Personally, I would call it music engineering. I know this has all the wrong kind of resonance with people, okay? But that's what it is. We are learning how music works and how to create it. We are engineers of music. Okay, we start with an idea. And by the way, for me, engineers are really creative people. I know people are like, engineers are like, no, they're really creative people. They start with an idea and they make it work. And that's what we do, okay? We could call it music design if you prefer, okay? It would be exactly the same. Because we start with an idea, with a feeling, with something, and we craft some music that then we can give to somebody else and they can listen to it and they can feel something. They can use it, okay? We are creators, okay? That's come from music theory, or at least what we call music theory, okay? Through a number of other things, because again, like you were saying, physical technique is super important. If you can write music but you cannot play it, you're missing a piece. I mean, you can always write music and let somebody else play it, okay? I mean, it's not that it's forbidden, okay? But good luck in finding another guitar player who'll play your solos, okay, before you're famous, okay? But it depends. It depends. Historically speaking, some of the best composers have been also pretty good instrumentalists, but not all of them. So sometimes you find people that they cannot make any instrument work, but they're pretty good composers. Sometimes you find people who could make an instrument work, but then they have physical problems and they cannot do it anymore. The best example here is Gustav Holst. I don't know if you guys know about Gustav Holst. It's the guy who composed The Planets. And The Planets is this thing composed between the two world wars. And you know it. If you ever seen a movie, you know them because they're being copied by all music writers, okay? Or taking inspiration of, okay? If you go and later go on YouTube and search The Planet, Gustav Holst, the moment you write The Planets, it appears, okay? And listen to the whole suite, you hear several movies, like note by note, really. Holst was an okay pianist, but he had some nerve problem on his right hand. So when he wrote The Planets, the first thing he did, rather than writing the whole orchestral thing, he didn't know if it would work, he wrote a version of The Planets for 2 pianos. I know these because I'm studying it. Okay, Gustav Holst, The Planets, for 2 pianos. The idea of this was to see if the music actually worked once he played it. I mean, remember, he didn't have a computer to play it. He had to go completely by ear to see if the whole thing was balanced and all this kind of thing. And also to have a score to start, because when you orchestrate something, you want to have a reference point, otherwise you get lost in all the instruments. And so he had 2 of his students play the whole thing for him several times until he got the right thing. It's interesting because we have the piano score first, and then from there he goes to the full, or he writes the orchestral part, and that's what we know. And it's interesting, essentially, that he had to find somebody to play the thing for him because he couldn't even play a piano. Anyway, just an example. I mean, if that's a situation and you guys cannot even play guitar, you can still write music. Though I have to say, it's really fun to write something and play it. What do you think of this, Mike? Because I'm rambling like crazy here.
No, this is fantastic stuff. I love hearing everything you said. And actually, the last thing you said is it's very possible to write music and not be able to play it or get other people to play it for you. I thought immediately of Jason Becker, who I'm sure you know, right? So he has people perform his music because he physically cannot even move. So an unfortunate story of his life, but it's a perfect example of what you're saying. The other thing that stuck out to me when you were talking about how to practice and not judge yourself, and I'm actually going to be publishing a video on this this coming Monday relating to practicing and people getting frustrated when they look at great players like Yngwie, Paul Gilbert, and really anybody who's good online. All they see is the finished product, whether it is playing really fast, really clean, or writing awesome songs or solos or whatever. You're seeing the result. You're not seeing the work, the trial and error, the frustrations, and all that stuff, especially today on the internet where everything looks so artificially polished and perfect. And then when you are practicing, whether it's technique or music theory or whatever, you are on your own with all your frustrations. So you see and feel all the negative stuff and associate that with you, but you don't see other people going through that, and that's where a lot of the frustration comes in. And it is really it's really important to see things in a more objective way. So, and I'm glad. So you talked about this as it relates to music theory, and I'm just adding in my 2 cents for technique and speed practicing as well. And also, you were talking about how you grow to appreciate music that didn't used to make sense to you. I'm a perfect example of that. It took me quite a few years to get into Dream Theater, believe it or not, because now they're my favorite band. Saw them live many times, and when I first heard them, I heard I think it was Scenes from a Memory album. I was like, how can anybody stand this band? It didn't make any sense to me at all. But part of me was said something similar to what you said. I'm like, well, it must be like, if so many people listen to this, there must be something to this. I just got to get better. And so the more I learned about odd meter and music theory and composition, I'm like, you know what? This is actually pretty cool. And then, of course, I think it was a Train of Thought that was the first album that really got me to fall in love with Dream Theater. And then I listened back to their older albums that were more progressive, and so now they're my favorite band of all time. So perfect example of what you're saying. So, Tommaso, what are some mistakes that you see people make when they approach practicing music theory? I know you hit on some of them already in your response so far, but is there something else that comes to mind, perhaps, that we haven't already mentioned?
Well, yeah, there are several. The thing, I think the very first mistake is, again, judging, but not just judging yourself, judging the sound of what you're playing based on the first trial. There are some things that sound great, but you're not stumbling on the right way of playing them the first time you try. Let me give you an example. One thing you can do, for instance, is to play chords completely out of key, okay, that are not in the same key with each other, and then just keep moving to other chords out of key. There are several ways of doing this. One way of doing this is to take the octave, okay, so you have all the 12 notes, and you divide it in 3 or in 4, okay, so let's take, I don't know, chords that are a major third apart. Let's say C, E, G sharp, or A flat, same thing. Okay, so those 3 chords, those 3 notes are a major third apart. On your fretboard, this will look like you have C, then you have to go 4 frets higher for E, 4 frets higher to G sharp, 4 frets higher, you come back to a C. Okay, just take a note and go 4 frets higher. Those 3 notes form an augmented chord. The augmented chord typically don't sound good to our ears, okay? So good. I mean, they have something, I mean, for the right situation, that sounds great, but that's not something that people will start with. But then again, I don't want to play the chord. I want to play other chords with those notes. So I could play a minor chord. Okay, and you've heard this. If you've seen any movie in the last 40 years, you've heard this sound. Now, that's not really the best way of playing them, though, because they're all far away. Okay, so some people will like this already. Amazing. But some other people will go like, no, because you're moving, it's the same thing. It doesn't really sound good and disconnected. So the way would be to find a way to play them close by. Okay. So that those chords are now, they're all close by. The notes are all close by. We call this voice leading for people in the known, okay? Now the sound is more compact. Now some people will like the previous example better and not this one. Some people like this one but not the previous one, okay? And the thing is exactly that. It's if by mistake you stumble on the example that you don't like, most people will go like, no, I don't like the idea, and they just write off the whole thing. So that's the first mistake. Don't judge the first sound that come at you. Try a different way of playing it. Try several ways of playing it, because what happens is that there is very likely one way of playing any single concept in music theory that you like, but it may not be the first one you stumble on, because again, we're all different, we like different things, okay? Sometimes you stumble on an example that another person like, and so they give you it as an example, but you don't. Okay, but that doesn't mean that that's the end of the concept, okay? So, by the way, some people like, there's a comment like by Javier, I like how dark it sounds. Yay, me too. That's why I started with the minor chords. But some people prefer to have the major chords here, okay? So in this case, they would have, moving it would be, okay, that's moving it, or they can have it in the same position. Okay, so, and again, some people will not like this transition here because of the top note. Some people will do like the transition because of the top note. Okay, so it's the same idea. 3 notes, a major third apart, so not in the same key, okay? And playing the same chord on top, okay? Then we can go and change the type of chord, okay? We can do a several thing. We can use 7th chord, diminished chord. We can do whatever we want, as usual, okay? For instance, I know you like a lot half diminished chords, so we can do this with half diminished chords. Okay, so, and this sounds different. This will not be a standalone piece of music, but that could be, for instance, an interlude from one piece of music to another, and you have this. Okay, and then you can find a way to play it compact and all this kind of thing. Okay, so it's still an actually, let me try and find a way to play it compact here. So, okay. Well, yeah, it would be this. Yeah. Then it would be this. Then it would be this. Not this. Sorry. This is better. No, okay, wait. So wait. Or something like that. Okay. No, wait. Sorry, I played the wrong chord. I knew this was gonna happen. That's the right thing. Okay. So, some people will like this. Some people will not like this at all. But the idea is to first explore, open your ears. Because what happens is sometimes you play this stuff and you're like, I don't like it. It's horrible, okay? And then 3 days later, you happen to be in a cinema watching a movie and they do exactly this thing or something similar, like, oh, I see how this can work now, okay? And since the sound is fresh in your mind, you recognize it, okay? People are like, my ear is not good enough. Oh, believe me, just by trying this stuff, your ear will become good enough, okay? A typical situation where this happens, for instance, is the altered dominant chord. So if you like jazz, or if you don't like jazz, okay, so those chords like sharp 9, flat 9 with a flat 5, okay, and the first time you use them, they are weird. And then the first time you put the right scale on top, which is a Superlocrian scale sounds horrible, per se, okay? It's at the beginning, you try and play it, and everything you play sounds horrible. Great, no problem. You try, okay? Literally everybody that I've seen learning a Superlocrian scale, whether I'm teaching it to them or somebody else, okay, have this experience at the beginning, okay? Then you go back and you listen to some music that uses this scale, and you recognize the sound, and like, wait, I know this sound, and this guy makes it work. So you start hearing it, and just since now you know that it's possible to make it work, then somehow it makes it easier to make it work. Okay, and then just by experiment, you find how to make it work. You don't have to go by experiment. There are also other guidelines, but that's how it works. At the beginning, that specific sound, it's just horrible. Okay, it just does not work. Okay, until it does, until it makes sense to you. That's the thing. So I think the biggest mistake of everybody studying music theory is to give up too soon on a sound. Okay, just keep experimenting with it. You don't have to do it every day. You don't have to play alternate chords every day if you loathe them. Okay, but every now and then come back to it. Every now and then come back to those strange theory ideas and try to play them. And then listen to music that you know has been composed with those ideas. So to see how it works, to get the feeling, okay? And the interesting thing here is that there are so many ways to make the same thing sound, that alternate chords are used in jazz, are used in blues, and there is sound different between jazz and blues. But they are also used in The Rite of Spring by Stravinsky. It's one of the famous part of The Rite of Spring. I think it's one of the. I think it's a sacrificial dance. It's you recognize it as kind of a dun 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 rhythm that you've heard. If you ever seen Rambo, First Blood, the original, that is that piece in the soundtrack. Okay, changed and copied, but dun 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 dun. Okay, and you recognize the rhythm, and that's an alternate dominant chord, and it doesn't sound jazz at all. So it's interesting. It's the same idea in a different context, sound completely different. Some people like one and don't like the other, and I cannot tell you which one you like because it depends. You were about to ask something, and I'm curious to what you were about to ask.
I actually, sorry, let me mute you here. I was actually going to comment on how you said the same sound, the same idea, musical idea can sound completely different depending on context. And I 100% agree, first of all, and specifically, many guitar players have this problem. If you only either play guitar or only listen to guitar music, because one obvious limitation that guitar has that other instruments like piano does not have is the spacing of the notes and the number of notes you can play at any given time, because you only got 4 fingers, and because of the tuning, you like all the extended chords, you can't really get all the notes in there. On piano, you've got 10 fingers, so you can do a whole bunch of stuff. So my point was, if you're learning, let's say, especially a chord progression where it sounds really weird to you, first of all, experiment with the spacing of the notes. And Tommaso, maybe you can speak more about that, so that you're playing either stuff in open spacing where the bass notes don't have the dissonant intervals like thirds and seconds, because then it sounds really nasty. And second, listen to other instruments where you can express the idea in different ways, and then you may find a new appreciation for it. Do you agree, Tommaso?
Totally. I totally agree. And the other thing is this. It's easier to play chords on piano, but not for the reason that most people think. Okay, so let me explain this. If you have a dissonant chord, so any kind of chord that has any dissonance, essentially not everything that is not a major triad or a minor triad, those are consonant chords. Everything else is at least a little bit dissonant. Okay, so you have a dissonant chord. Dissonant chords sound less dissonant if you spread the notes away. Okay, so. And I don't know. I'm gonna make an example with an interval so you guys get it. If I play a half step on the low strings, it sounds horrible. I mean, unless you like it, and then we can use it. But okay, that sound, it's since those two notes are close by, this sound it's really tense. If I take the very same two notes and I spread them apart more, it's still dissonant, but it's not as urgent, okay, and stinky, okay, as it was before. Okay, so you spread them. If you put other notes in between, okay, you can even make this work. Okay, the more you spread them, and if you put other notes in between and you use a little bit of art, use notes that are consonant with both of them, okay, for instance, then you can justify those intervals and make them sound less dissonant. So piano has the advantage here because you can spread the hands as much as you want and play those notes 7 octaves apart. We don't have 7 octaves here, okay? And it's already hard to play a chord high and low, okay? So yeah, it's hard to do it on the guitar. So that's already a problem. We are cursed to play our chords in a restricted range. I mean, up to a certain point, we can manage 2 octaves of spacing, but not really more than that. And that's one problem. The other problem is the tone of the guitar. Okay, the piano tone is pretty much studied so that it works with chords, because that's the job of the instrument. Okay, it's very percussive, so when you want the motion, you have it. Okay, but the tone, the harmonics of the tone, have been studied and balanced in the centuries so that chords work really well. There's a reason why we play less and less harpsichord and more piano. Okay, because the chord on the harpsichord sound okay, but the chord on the piano sounds great. Okay, and so much that there is a very little variation in the sound of a piano. Okay, the 2 extremes are the Steinway and the Bosendorfer. The Steinway being the one with the most highs, the most brilliant one, and the Bosendorfer being the warmer one. And the way they achieve that is that the hammer of the piano hits the string at a specific point. It hits at 1/9 of the string for a Steinway and at 1/8 of the string for the Bosendorfer. So it's like that much of a difference in the whole string of the piano. Okay, and that's the difference we have. So I mean, it's really codified to sound good with chords. The sound of the guitar, especially the electric guitar, it's not done for that. Because when we create the electric guitar, we create the electric guitar for soloing. Because we wanted the guitar solo with a band that it was way louder than an acoustic guitar, okay? And that's we created the electric guitar to make a solo. So we optimize the sound for that. That's why sometimes you play a chord on the guitar and it sounds, and then you play it on the piano and it sounds great. The same notes, same distance. Okay, how can we remedy that? Well, there is the jazz player solution, which is to roll your tone down. Okay. Now the sound becomes much warmer. You cut away the high harmonics, okay, which means the warmer sound makes the chords sound sound more together. Okay, and so you can get away with harsher dissonances if you roll the tone down. Okay, again, it's not a chance that many jazz players are searching a warm sound. Okay, and it's not a chance that many rock or metal players search for a bright sound with distortion, etc., because we play mostly power chords, and so we want that thing to sound good. Harmonically, there is not much conflict between those notes, so we need more highs and more harmonics to make the thing sound good. Otherwise, it sounds empty. Okay, again, both very legit procedures. Just so you know that if you're using distortion or a sound with a lot of sparkle in it, and you play a dissonant chord, okay, it may not immediately work on the guitar, but that's a question of tone, not a question of harmony. And by the way, again, the distinction between tones and harmony, it's not as sharp as we would like. Okay, sometimes what you like a good tone on a guitar, it's actually great arrangement. Okay, and just a good way of putting the notes so that it sounds good, and not really the tone or the amplifier or the pedals. Okay, just saying. But okay, so that's why sometimes we play those things that we see the piano players playing, or we are learning, I don't know, some jazz or other stuff, or some other more complex harmonical stuff, and we don't like it because the tone of our guitar is set up to make one note or two notes sound very rich. So when you put in four notes and dissonant, it's too rich and too dissonant. So maybe take the treble down on the amplifier, take the tone down here, and try again, okay? And see if you like it. And again, you don't have to like it, okay? It's just knowing that all those things interact with each other, okay? So it's not we cannot just take something made for another instrument and simply play it on the guitar. That said, though, we can always write some music and have another instrument playing it. Okay, so there is no problem if you write a few strange chords and ask a piano player of playing them, or if you put them ask a string quartet of playing the chords. Of course, they have to separate the notes between the different instruments, etc. And the interesting thing is that the different instrumentation works in a different way, meaning that some chords work great on some instruments, some other chords work great on some other instrument, and then there's all this kind of trickery on what octave exactly you put the note to make it sound better, okay, which now we go straight into orchestration, of course, and these things do make the difference, okay? At the same time, we do have some incredible advantage on the guitar, okay? Because some of the chords, as we play them, are ready to go for specific instruments. So if you are a jazz player, and if you learn your seventh chord on the first four strings, okay, and you can create stuff. Stuff like that, okay? You can take a melody on the first string, harmonize it with the chord on the first four string, and then those are ready to go for a saxophone section. Because the range of all the strings are exactly right, and the voicing of this chord are exactly right for a saxophone section, okay? And that's one example among many. It's not the only thing, okay? If you play triads with spread voicing, which you hear some player playing it now and then. Yeah, it's this kind of thing here. So try with spread voice in three notes, but not in the same octave. Those will work fantastically great for two violins and one viola, for instance, or one violin, one viola, one cello, or two violas, one cello, all these kind of combinations. They will sound great on a string. Okay, meaning we have some definite advantage here, and piano players don't. Okay, and you notice this when I arrange for this kind of ensemble. Okay, it's not that we are inferior to the piano. We have a different instrument. They have some problems. We have some problems. Okay, one problem every arranger who's also a piano player has is that since they use two hands, and since they play the bass and the melody, whenever they arrange for orchestra or jazz band, etc., there is a big hole in the center frequencies because they don't think of playing those. And it takes a bit of experience for them to realize, no, I need to put some notes in between. So you immediately recognize that it sounds empty. We don't have this problem, okay? So, because we cannot do that. We have other problems. But it's learning your instrument and learning theory, and learning how theory applies to your instrument and to other instruments possibly, so that you can do all this. Now, I make it sound like it's super complex, but it's really not as complex, okay? Just recognizing that theory doesn't apply the same to a guitar or a piano. And so some stuff that works great for piano doesn't really work for us, and vice versa. Okay, ask a piano player to do this. Not happening. Okay, so Mike, you're muted if you want to talk.
Yeah, unless you're Jordan Rudess, then you can probably do stuff like that, like with the bends and stuff, because he's got the wheel and. So fantastic observations, Tommaso. I love how you basically describe it as music theory. Music theory for each instrument has its own intricacies, and each instrument is like in the big scheme of orchestration, it's like a tool, like a problem-solving tool for the sounds you want to create, because each one has got its own unique advantages and I don't want to say disadvantages. We can just call them peculiarities, if you will. And by stacking them all together in a specific way, you get the exact sound without the limitations of of one instrument that are compensated with the other. So that is great, great stuff. Let me ask you this. This is because this is something I promised to my guys in my email list that I'm going to be grilling you about, and that is the topic of learning songs. Specifically, how can somebody who is not necessarily an advanced player technically, but they may or may not have a decent knowledge. Let's assume they have an average to about average knowledge of music theory. How can they study, let's say, advanced songs like Dream Theater songs or some compositions that are not even guitar related and benefit from them in a way that does not require physically sitting down and memorizing stuff by rote? What are some tips you have for doing that?
Okay. So, well, it really depends on your outlook here, because there's so many things you can do. You can look at the chord progression, and I mean, first of all, you don't have to learn the whole song. Okay, just saying. One thing I was doing at the beginning is I was learning the part I liked of every song. Okay, sometimes I learn actually to play the whole thing, the thing, but sometimes I just learn the part I like of every song, and meaning that I was just studying what they were doing. Okay, so for instance, there is this part it's in Images and Words. No, it's in Awake, the album of I can't remember the name of the song now, but there is this part. Where they use all this kind of experimental harmony. It's an instrumental part in one song, and I can't remember the name of the song. You know, and but anyway.
Could it be Voices?
Sorry? No.
Could it be this? Could it be the song Voices?
No, it's later. You know what? Give me a sec. Because if I can find just the song list, I can tell you immediately. Lie. It's in Lie. It's the instrumental part in Lie. Okay. Where there are the strange chords and a guitar solo on top, which is just more of a melody hitting the chord notes and all this kind of thing. And the chord at first don't make any sense. If you've been schooled in classical theory or even jazz theory, you look at those chords and like they have no relationship with each other. They are actually all part of modes who have the same root. So it starts in B minor, but then it takes the first chord is B minor, then the second chord is D minor, which is in B Locrian, and so on and so forth. Okay, and it goes on changing modes and changing. And the question is how do you write all this? So I sat down and tried to rewrite the part and try to write in a slightly different way and see what I will do, and that did me a lot of good. Try to reverse engineer what they were doing, and the solo sound. I mean, the melody sounded so good, tying everything together, and it's essentially hitting chord notes. And that was was a realization like you can solo over everything, literally everything, as long as you hit the chord notes. Okay, the rest of the song, it's good, but I didn't really care that much about the rest of the song. But that little part, that little 8-bar, except a 16-bar, whatever it is, excerpt, did me a lot of good, harmonically speaking. So, for instance, that's thing. On the same album, the beginning of The Mirror, as the strange rhythmical thing that it's in triplet and in quadruplets, but you have to listen to it to understand. I think I spent 3 good days trying to reverse engineer that until I could do it on a computer, okay, with MIDI and stuff. So not playing it, because I wanted to understand exactly what the heck they were doing, okay. So the idea is you don't have to learn the whole song. You take one part that you like or that you're just curious about. Okay, you can transcribe it if you want to just grab the tabs or the scores or whatever, and try to understand what they're doing. And even if you don't have a complete answer, okay, then you can try to write something along the same line. Okay, they are in key, stay in key. They're not in key, stay out of key. Okay, how are those chords connected? Can you invent an idea that would explain that, and then will also give you a different chord progression, and try this different chord progression. So it's kind of just essentially thinking about it and trying to reproduce it, but not exactly the same. And that's a great way of studying songs. You can learn a lot of that. And you do this only for the parts you really, 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 really like, and only for the songs you really, really like. And before you know, you start developing your own style because you get more knowledgeable on what you really, really, really like. Okay? Even if you don't find it in books. Okay? The problem of most books of music theory or researchers in general is that they're simply not telling you how to do all this. Okay? And there are so many other new ideas that come out all the time that it would be probably impossible for one resource to really cover all of these. But you can start reverse engineer the thing by yourself. Okay, you create your own little music theory for that. Okay, that will be a great way of studying songs. Okay, and the interesting thing is sometimes, on the other hand, you find something that you know already. Okay, something that you know already that and you're like, oh, it's just this. So then when this happens, you study how they made that old concept sound so good that I like it and I have to transcribe it. Okay, so yeah, that's a way. And you don't have to have any technical skill for that, because you're not replaying the song, you're reverse engineering it. So you may not even have to touch your guitar. You may, okay. You may use a computer, okay, Cubase, Logic, etc. You may write stuff on the score if you know how to do it, okay. There is nothing, that's a way to do it, okay. This works great, especially for us guitar players, though, because you can always do this. You can always take something from another style and steal it, as I say, okay? So, for instance, I like a lot Andy Timmons, the guitar player, okay? In an interview was saying that a good part of his solo lines are actually John Coltrane lines that he stole, okay, and played on different chords. And it's true. You can hear that. Once it tells you can hear that, okay? You go listen to John Coltrane, sounds completely different, but if you take the single line, take away the chord, okay, and play somewhere else, it's that line, no more no less, okay? Which is great. I mean, it's not really, well, it is stealing, but it's not bad stealing, okay? You're taking something into a different context, you create new music, okay? You can go and, like we were saying before, take the best from other styles, okay? You don't even have to like the other style, okay? Personally, I'm not really a fan of bebop. I mean, I can listen to it, I can enjoy it, but in a given afternoon, that's not what I put on my speakers, okay? But I stole a lot of stuff from bebop because there were good ideas in there. Okay, so you don't have to like it. Just grab something, okay? Grab something that hits your interest, okay? Because even listening to bebop, you can go and like, I don't like the song, but that line was interesting. There was something to that, okay? And then you steal that, okay? You get it to the point that you can steal a single lick from a whole solo, and that will already be enough if you like that lick, okay? Just make a collection of all the best part of all the songs you like and study those, okay? You don't have to study the whole song. People are there is this thing that people, I mean, maybe your students do, like they come to you and they tell you, I don't even know how to play a whole song. Yeah, so what? I mean, unless you really want to, which is great, but it's not that you have to. It's not a specific rite of passage that you have to pass and you have to do it before a certain amount of time. Otherwise, you're not part of the adult society or stuff like that, okay? If you want to play a whole song, play a whole song. But I know a lot of great players, and I will not make any names, but a lot of great players that never learn a song of another person completely. They learn the part they liked, then they wrote their own songs, and then they playing their own songs. But they never learn a complete song of somebody else, because that's not what they were into. Okay? See, that's another thing. It's we have this feeling that we have to be able to do everything. And lead and rhythm and complex superharmonic theory and strange fingerings and super speed, and especially rhythm, okay? Because a lot of people will tell you, no, but the guitar player is typically playing rhythm. It's true. On any given band, you spend most of the time playing rhythm. It's true. And yet, B.B. King, Jeff Beck, Have you ever heard them playing any rhythm? No. B.B. King, because he says he can't. Jeff Beck, I'm sure he can play rhythm, but nobody asks him to. Because, okay. I mean, would you give the same advice to B.B. King? You have to learn first how to play rhythm, because that's what you play in a band. He can't play, he cannot literally even play a double stop. Don't I say, double stop are beyond me. Okay, I mean, he actually plays a couple, but. Okay, so the reality is that you play what you want. You want to play only lead? Play only lead. Don't let anybody else tell you that you have to play rhythm. I play rhythm because it's fun. Okay. Or you want to play only rhythm. Don't let anybody else say that you have to play lead. Okay. You guys decide what you like and do that. Okay. Period. Okay. If you want to go and play, I don't know, in the local jazz band, yeah, you have to study rhythm. That's what they're asking you to play. But if you don't like doing that, why would you even go and play in that band? Okay. So that's the thing is, what do you like? Don't listen to what other people say you have to. Okay. Decide what you want to do and then get a plan to get there. Okay. I mean, if you want to play and sound like B.B. King, and that's the only thing you want to do, you're not spending any time studying the Lydian mode, for instance, or modes in general, because that's not what you use. You're not studying polyrhythms, okay? You're not studying complex chord, again, no chords in B.B. King playing. You're getting that pentatonic down and some extra notes and get that rhythm down. You get the horrible B.B. King vibrato, sorry. Okay, if you want that sound, that's the sound, okay. I don't want the sound, but that's okay. And then you get it and you do it. If you don't want that and you want other stuff, you do the other stuff. Okay, but see, that's one mistake. The mistake is that we think that we have to do everything. We need to be the super versatile guitar player ever existed, okay? You become versatile if you want to become versatile. But if you have one sound in mind that you like, get that sound, okay? Later you can become versatile if you need to, okay?
Yeah, totally. I agree 100%. And it's interesting how I think the way with everything you've been kind of talking about boils down to is that music becomes your own adventure in the end. Whether you're learning songs or don't learn songs, you start with what you like and then you do your best to reverse engineer it. And by getting enough of those things and your own spin on those that inevitably just happens from you experimenting and playing stuff, that's what your unique style really is. Sort of like your personality as a human being is a byproduct of all your life experiences, things you've learned, and so on. Same thing happens with music. And the only other thing I would add to what you said is, in addition to taking things that you like, and actually I think you did say that earlier. In addition to taking things that you like in songs and reverse engineering why you like them, it may also be helpful to take things you hate and see what might you change about them to make them better. Whether it is what you said earlier, playing them on a different instrument if you can, or if you think the rhythm sucks, make the rhythm better. If you think the harmony is weird or one chord is weird, change it. Change a weird jazz chord to a major triad and see if you like it better. That's going to trigger a whole bunch of connections in your brain about how things work. And that, I think, that's also is a useful way to learn songs without having to necessarily be an advanced technical player, and get basically probably even more benefit, probably way more benefit out of it than somebody who just sits there and learns from tab, and then all you can do is repeat the songs and repeat the notes somebody else played, but then you're not really a better musician for it. In fact, I think it was a couple of live streams ago that I did with you, Tommaso, when you said something really profound that I remembered, how songs people write, they're based on their limitations. And so if all you do is learn the catalog of whoever, AC/DC to Dream Theater, even the Dream Theater guys have limitations, right? Believe it or not. So you're not the side effect of that is you're also learning their limitations, so to speak, if you only get to their level. That's why if you do the things that Tommaso and I have been talking about, that's how you really develop your style. So let's go to some questions here. Actually, it's not really a question; it's a comment. But I think you have something you may say to this, Tommaso. Um, there's a comment that says, "It's interesting how some can shred the hell out of a guitar but know zero theory, and some that know a lot of theory can barely play." What do you think, Tommaso, about guitar players who supposedly know zero theory? What are your thoughts on that?
No such a thing. Okay, people all okay. There's a whole class of guitar players who say I don't know any theory, and their definition of theory is everything I don't know. So it's kind of a circular definition because they're like, "Can you play me three chords?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." What do you think those are? Those are theory. Can you play me a major scale? Sure. What do you think this is? It is music theory. Okay. The thing is that at a certain point, you just say, I know that much. Everything I know already, it's not really music theory. And everything I don't know, it's music theory. Reminds me of, when you drive on the highway, you meet two different kind of other drivers. The one who go too slow and the one that go too fast. But your speed, it's absolutely right. Everybody who goes slower should get an extra coffee. And everybody who goes faster is a maniac and you are doing the thing exactly right. What a coincidence. Okay. And that's exactly the same thing. The reality is that you already know some theory. Okay. Maybe you know it partially. Maybe you don't know it formally. But if you ever played a major chord, that's your theory. Okay, you may not know exactly it's called a major chord. You may not know the name of the chord. It's an E, a G. You may not know the notes inside, but that's a little part of theory. Okay, the only thing that we do is let's take the next step on something you already started. Okay, and once you learn it, it feels the same. It's completely transparent. People have this idea that we study music theory and then we become, I don't know, mathematicians or something, and we always have to do the long calculation, like that's the major chord and that's the other minor chord, and then I have to calculate the number of frets higher and all this kind of. Guys, it becomes more and more transparent. Okay, every time you learn something new, you have to think about it. I mean, like every time you learn a new lick, you have to think about it. Okay, but it becomes transparent. And you start hearing it, and all those concepts you learn, eventually you start hearing them, and then it's just immediate. You hear something and like, you know what kind of chord it is, you know what it's played, okay, or you know what scale it is, you know what mode it is or whatever. You listen to a song and like, okay, that's part in Dorian, great, okay, and this makes it easier for you to work with it, to change it, to play it, even to learn it, okay. If you know zero theory, learning a song by heart, for instance, when you play it on stage, it's a pain. You have to learn every single chord in every single position and try to remember the whole chord progression. If you learn your theory just enough to say, for instance, this is a blues chord progression, the whole set you play in an evening could be, okay, the first one is a blues in E, the second is a blues in G, the third is a blues in C sharp, okay, and you're done. You don't have to remember all those chords and notes and voicing, etc. You just can go. Okay, so it's just a way to get to know your music better. Okay, but on the thing that some people know a lot of technique and some people know a lot of theory, well, and there are also a lot of people in between. Okay, it's just that the extremes are more evident to your eyes. But honestly, I see also a lot of people who don't know either theory or technique, and I also see a lot of people who know their technique really well and their theory really well. For some reason, those showing off that you know technique looks good in the eye of the public, up to a certain point. I mean, not if you become arrogant or anything, but showing off physical abilities look good. Showing off theoretical abilities look good only on some specific people, and even for them. So Jacob Collier can get away with it. Okay. Other people, they start telling you, oh yeah, I'm just playing enough diminish. You're pretentious. That's what I'm playing. Okay. So that's why you may see some people that tell you that they don't know theory, or they never had a teacher, or they never practiced it. But also in practice, no, I don't practice. I don't really practice. I just play my guitar. Yeah, sure. Okay. So, okay, but you see people of all kinds, and that's normal because some people study guitar because they want to play with that, or because they want to shred it. They don't care about understanding the music behind it until it becomes a limitation. But some other people learn to play guitar because they want to understand the theory, believe it or not, like if people play the piano, because then they want to write for other musicians. The guitar is a great sketching instrument. You can sketch some music in here and then arrange it for another ensemble. Okay, like the piano, it's a great sketching instrument. Some people learn the piano specifically to become composers. They never become pianists. They learn the piano so that they can write for orchestra. Okay, there's nothing strange about that. It really depends on your goals. And again, they are all good as long as your limitation do not hold you back too much.
Yes, that perfect answer, Tommaso. I like how I like your highway distinction of the slow driver and the fast driver, first of all, and how you said that the extremes are the ones that attract our attention, but there's a whole bunch of people in the middle that we don't necessarily talk about. So that is really, really great insights there. Hopefully everybody paid attention. Really, in general, fantastic stuff here. So, Tommaso, you have a ebook on your website that you wanted to share with the guys here on the live stream. Do you want to talk about that real quick? What it's about? Oh, sorry, I gotta unmute you, don't I? Go ahead, Tommaso.
Book on getting started on music theory. Okay, so if you know nothing about music theory, or if you know just a little bit, or if you are thinking, if you're like you were saying before, you know something that I would call music theory, like a chord or two, but you don't know what's the next step, this ebook is your next step. Okay, it's a very short ebook. It contains some elements that I dare say 90% of a guitar player don't really know. Okay, but it's explained in a simple way, and it empowers you to do different things than you were doing before. Immediately applicable. Okay, it's free, guys. Let me put it this way: if you have any doubt, if you ever want to learn something about music theory, you get this ebook, you get an idea. This gets you started. Again, completely free, no string attached. I'm assuming, in this ebook, I'm assuming absolute zero knowledge. You could be a complete beginner and still understand this ebook. But you could also be pretty advanced in your technique and other things and find something new in it. So, absolutely recommended if you want to get started in music theory.
Yes, I recommend Tommaso's book as well. It is really good. And I also have something for you guys. This is my video masterclass on a different topic, not related to music theory at all, but more congruent with the theme of this channel, How to Practice Guitar. As you can see, it's called Guitar Speed Formula. And what it is basically a way to build speed without going through the traditional song and dance of starting slow and building speed in small increments, because if you've tried that, you probably know it doesn't work nearly as well as everybody promises that it does. So this shows you a different way to do it, and it's also completely free. No strings attached, except you're going to be getting daily funny emails from me on how to practice guitar better. So if you hate a lot of email, don't opt into that. But if you like funny emails that are also useful, then I think you will enjoy both the video and the emails. So here's that. So let me bring Tommaso back here. There we go. So Tommaso, thank you so much for joining everybody here and sharing your awesome insights about music theory. I knew it was going to be awesome, and it was. So thank you for all of that. Thank you, everybody who joined us. And Tommaso, do you have any final thoughts to share here?
Sure. Thank you for having me, and thank you to your audience. I'm reading the comments. They're really funny and they're really interactive. I like that we can have this kind of a little bit of back and forth with them. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure being here, and always a pleasure talking with you, Mike. And yeah, I think we are meeting each other another time in January, but this time I'm going to be your host and you're going to be the grilled one. Okay, so we're going to see each other soon. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that as well, Tommaso. And I'm going to put links in the description of this live stream. If they're not there already, I'll need to check for how people can follow you, your website, musictheoryforguitar.com, and of course, your YouTube channel. Everybody should be subscribed to Tommaso's channel if you're not already. So thanks again. We will see you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye.